Okay, Aftershocks Tremors. Thanks everyone again for joining us on another episode as we discuss all things music business. And joining me today, man, we got a name and a voice that some of you out there might recognize from what's, in my opinion, the best new music podcast show that's out there. It's called the Doomed and Stone Show. And he's also the hard and heavy rock mayor of Sin City, Las Vegas, with his Vegas Rock Revolution. Got Mr. John Gist joining us with me on Tremors here. What's up, John? Thanks for coming on, man. How are you?
What up? What up? It's Friday, so it's time to rock, man. Thanks a lot for having me on.
Yeah, man, absolutely, dude. I'm really looking forward to talking to you, and especially, obviously, I was in Vegas just a week or so ago, and finally got my first experience checking out a Vegas Rock Revolution show, which was really cool, man. You put on a great show that night. Spirit Mother, couple of the local bands there from Las Vegas, man, cool stuff. So, I mean, Vegas Rock Revolution, before we get into it, I just want to, let me just bring this up here so everyone can see this beautiful logo, Vegas Rock Revolution there. Just talking about Las Vegas and rock and metal history, it's really traditionally not really a place that a lot of people, I guess, associate with good rock and metal, or, talking about from back in the, days. I mean, obviously more recently, we do see some good, some popular rock and metal coming out of there. Bands like Five Finger Death Punch and Fallen in Reverse. A lot of the newer bands, from the 2000s in that era.
Imagine Dragons.
Dragons, Killers. I was just going to say, those are the pop rock bands, obviously Slaughter from, that was the hair metal band, obviously from Vegas with Slaughter.
Yeah. The drummer lives here. And so he's involved with different bands here or there. Yeah. This is where hair metal musicians go to retire. A lot of them.
Yeah.
There's no state taxes here.
There you go.
So just think about it. If you live in California and you live here, you immediately come over. If you come over here, you're immediately getting, for every 100,000, you're getting $6,000 to $10,000 back in your pocket, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's Vegas musically. There's actually two bands that have done pretty good thanks to being on Octane Radio, which is part of the Sirius XM thing, and that is Adelita's Way.
Yes, okay, I heard of them.
And then Otherwise. Matter of fact, a couple of the guys, actually a guy from Adelita's Way comes to my shows when he's in town quite a few times. I mean, when he's not on tour, he comes to shows even. He's a fan of other kinds of rock as well.
Really? Oh, that's very cool. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Andrew's a cool cat. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, no, and that is, and you're right, man. That was the thing I was going to say was, obviously Vegas, it's changed so. I mean, I used to, when I lived in LA, I was going there at least, 2 or 3 times a year. And, I hadn't, this is when I went there last week, I hadn't been there it's been a while, probably about 6 years or so. Like I said, I used to have some in-laws that lived there. So we were there all the time, but I mean, it's changed so much. And a lot of it's really become sort of Hollywood in the desert now. A lot of people, like you said, a lot of musicians and just people from Hollywood retired. I mean, even got people like Eddie Trunk, I believe lives there now. He's moved there.
Second home.
It's a second home. Okay.
He is around a lot. He's friends with some of my friends. He's friends with Stoney Curtis, who's this excellent bluesman, guitarist, musician that's in the band Counts 77. Now, for folks who don't know who the Count is, that's Danny Coker from the TV show Counting Cars on the History Channel. They've had 10 seasons. And Stoney, I've gotten to know over the years. Heck, I've even had him on radio shows as interview, but him and Eddie have definitely clicked it off, and they're out and about sometimes. And I've met Eddie a few times. The last time I met him, this will relate to to the topic you and me were talking about earlier. Last time I met him, it was in a VIP section of Counts Vamped. All right. Okay. And I was talking to a fan, a buddy of mine, and he goes, "Hey, Eddie, this fucker is a Cowboys fan?" And Eddie looked at me with disgust. And I'm great. Like, well, sorry you guys said shit taste, but I know you're from Jersey, I guess. So I'm not sure if you even recognize me. even recognize my presence next time I see him. But I'll come right up to Eddie and say to him 2-0 is what I'll do.
There you
if
go.
I see him, and he'll go, "What does that mean?" And then I'll tell him, and
he probably won't talk to you the rest of the night.
Well, he really won't talk to me that much, anyways. I mean, just a little bit. I'm nothing compared to the star power that Vegas has lingering around at all times. I mean, it's like literally, Paul Sortino from Rough Cut, super nice guy, even knows my name now. It's so crazy. Like, hey, John, how are you doing today? Sortino's is there. Les Warner, the drummer from like the early era of the Cult, is here. Nice. Mike Varney from Shrapnel Records.
Yeah, he was at the show that night, right? Mike Varney, because I was, I was wanting to say what's up and introduce myself because he was in a documentary that I actually worked on called The Bay Area of Godfathers. That's my good buddy I was talking about before, Bob Nalbany. He was in that. But every time I was going to go up to him, he was talking to someone. I got a little tipsy, and I was just like, "Yeah, you know what? I'll do it another time. I'm a little fucked up right now." So
you should have let me know. He's a really good friend of mine.
Okay, cool.
He would have been blown away at the documentary Factoid. He supports all my shows if he can, if he's in town. Cool. He is such a nice guy, and he loves stoner rock.
Really? Oh, very cool.
Loves stoner rock.
So he's not just about, because Shrapnel, obviously, that's such an obviously, legendary label. I mean, that was one of the first really metal independent labels, I think, ever.
You're exactly right. That and Metal Blade came out within months of each other. Varney was a writer for, what was it, Guitar World or Guitar Magazine, one of those. And next thing you know, he did a shredder contest and literally recruited metal guitarists from around the world and created a label around it. I mean, he's the guy that brought Yngwie to the States.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, I love talking to Mike, whether it's on the phone, which sometimes is 1 o'clock in the morning because of weird hours, or whether it's at a bar or at that dinner with him. His stories are endless.
Oh, I'm sure
and Mike's the guy who doesn't drink, doesn't do drugs. He's like a monk, like a metal monk, he's just, and it's the stories are endless. The perspective, seriously, someone should do a documentary about him or a movie. He's just such an fascinating character, and he's a good person. People swear by him. I mean, he's got a loyal crowd.
Yeah,
I mean,
my buddy Bob Nalbany swears by him too. So yeah, I heard nothing but great things about him, man. And so I mean, so now it's interesting because Vegas now, obviously is starting to really, there's a lot of hard rock, metal, and stuff coming out of it now. Just now with your, starting up Vegas Rock Revolution, I remember, I think it was probably about, it's probably got to be about a good 5 years or so ago. And I think it was on that Caius World page on Facebook where I think it was even an article or video. And I remember it was about, Vegas Rock Revolution. It was about yourself and you starting this up. And I remember just, I think it was an article, whatever. I was reading it or watching it or something, being like, wow, this is fucking great, man. This is something that needs to be done. Someone's out there like yourself, just, wanting to just kind of bring a lot of, and like I said, it wasn't so much you were looking to get just old veteran bands to come through and play shows. You really were putting an emphasis on a lot of the new stuff because you were one of the ones that I've been saying for years that there's so much good music out there. We talk about this all the time on the show, me and my partner Chris, and there's so much good. I hate when people say, "Oh, there's just nothing new that's good out there." It's like bullshit. There's so much good shit. It's just that it's not being spoon-fed to people like it used to be, and then a lot of people just don't know how to get it and where to discover new music from. But you were one of the first ones that were doing this, and I remember just kind of following it and following the page. And I've been seeing you, obviously. Now here it is. Now 5 or 6 years later, you're still doing this. I mean, just talk a little bit about why you started Vegas Rock Revolution, and just really why you as a guy from Virginia, from the East Coast that now lives in Vegas, that you decided that you wanted to put this together at this point in your life at that time.
Well, I'll tell you, life is full of journeys and massive challenges. And my life took an interesting turn twice in the span of like 12 years.
Okay.
First off, after being single for a zillion years, like living the single man life, many times not even having a, a girlfriend, but still enjoying the single life.
Mhm.
When living in Orlando, Florida, I met a woman and got married.
Okay.
But I ended up getting a job in Vegas in the middle of all that. So
Okay.
I got a job in Vegas over a big marketing department. My previous world, I ran, marketing departments with budgets between 40 million to 100 and something million
Oh, wow.
dollars. I know that sounds crazy for a rock and roll stoner, animal like me, but
Mhm.
I guess I'm blessed with having that duality. But so I moved to Vegas, and then soon after she came over and we got married and all that shit. Lived out in the suburbs, making 6-digit plus, and all that stuff. But I've always been a rock and roll guy. Always supported. Always been a guy who listens to music and shares it, and
Mhm.
listens to music, not just what's fed. And so, long story short, within a year's time, I left my job after 5.5 years and like 3 award-winning years where I was, flown to a trip and all this stuff,
Mhm.
and got divorced all within a year. Um, I mean, life really threw some curveballs at me at that point in time,
Mhm.
and so I immediately tried to go out there and get a job. Later on, well, not immediately, but a little bit later on, and I couldn't. No one would hire me, and I have a resume that's
Mm.
thick. I couldn't even get hired for entry level jobs in different industries, and that was like for me. Well, first off, it's a sign of the times. I probably don't check all the boxes, and probably a little intimidating.
So you're probably
With resume.
overqualified with some of that stuff, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and they, of course, they started stereotyping what someone like me with a resume like me would do,
Mhm.
and I was like, holy fuck. Luckily, you save money in this life. And so I started going out to bars, to meet women, but I was
Mhm.
by myself. I'm kind of a part of a wolf pack usually, where I got a crew of guys,
Mhm. Sure.
not just the one creepy guy that starts talking. And
Mhm.
I hated it, honestly. I
Mhm.
hated it. I wasn't meeting women that way, and I felt uncomfortable. And
Mhm.
so I switched gears and said, I'm just going to start going to rock and roll shows. That's what
Mhm.
I'm going to do for nightlife. And maybe I'll meet some people then. And
Mhm.
that's how it switched.
Okay.
I had already was a Caius fan since when Caius came out in
Okay.
Monster Magnet and COC. And so when I got introduced to stoner rock and doom and psych a little more early 2010s on Amazon Music. Literally, I'd buy a CD or something. Then they would say
Mhm.
others to suggest. And that's when I ran into Rival Sons,
Okay.
which at the time was not the Rival Sons they are now as far as popularity.
Mhm.
I ran into Sasquatch, Freedom Hawk, and Gozu. Those are ones that really stuck in
Okay.
my head. And I'm like, holy shit. The real rock and roll that I want to hear is actually out there. It's
Mhm.
just not being played on the radio. It's not being played on Octane Radio, which had some glimmers of hope early on.
Mhm.
And then, now has created their own brand of music, really.
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
Their own
Mhm.
heavy rock brand that's
Modern metal
exceptionally
stuff. Yeah.
overproduced. Like
Absolutely. Mhm.
it's, and so I started going to some stoner rock shows when they were coming in town, and I saw Spirit Caravan, which of course
Okay.
features Wino
I know. Mhm.
and now departed Dave Sherman,
Mhm.
and and Elder and Moss Generator.
Okay. Nice.
Now that's one hell of a lineup.
Sure.
And I was probably in that room with about 20 people. And I
Mhm.
was like, God, I don't know if anyone even knew about the show. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And
Mhm.
that was a common theme I noticed is no one knew about shows in Vegas. Like venues suck when it comes to letting people know about stuff.
Mhm.
And on Facebook in particular is a place that people can discover, about shows and music if they do the right things as a consumer, following the right stuff.
Mhm.
I was just blown away. There was no ads. There was not even postings to groups saying, "Hey, tomorrow night, venues just don't have time to do it anymore. And there's probably not enough money to warrant hiring someone to do it either. That's
True.
how bad off rock and roll can be. And so that's when a bulb in my head popped up, and I was like, huh. And I talked to a couple people I knew. I'm like, I'm kind of thinking about doing shows. How hard could it be? Hell, I could barely do anything. I probably did better than what these people are doing. And so at some point in time, I did it. And my first show was with House of Broken Promises, which features Arthur C. and Mike Cancino, both of UNITA fame as well. And they played my first show. And I think my second show was like Void Vader and Salem's Band. I mean, I had Void Vader, Salem's Band, all of them really early. I was one of the first people to really pay attention to Void Vader. And just kind of went from there, man.
Yeah, very cool. And then here you are.
No one going to these shows. I went to Freedom Hawk with like 12 people. I mean, it was like, this is one of the best bands in the world. And no one, and it's just venues didn't do it. So I lost a shit ton of money in those first couple of years doing shit. Just learning.
Okay.
I mean, no one knew me. No one knew what the fuck. And here, we do not have a large underground stoner rock, psych, doom fan base. We didn't.
You didn't, but now
a little bit more.
Thanks to VRR, you've got that. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, you're, and you said you had no previous experience in the music business at all. This is your first foray into the business, correct?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Now, just to get to you brought up something before about losing a shitload of money, and that's unfortunately one of a lot of reasons why we are seeing, I think, what we're seeing such a shortage of, obviously a scene, I mean, a lot of, major areas is because, promoters, like yourself, you stand to obviously lose a lot of money doing this. It's just rock is just not profitable anymore. And, it's sort of becoming I had a discussion with this the other day with my buddy. It's becoming, obviously it's not a fashionable thing as it once was for younger kids. So it's really a bunch of guys like ourselves, older guys that are really keeping it alive. I mean, obviously you've got a lot of young bands. I mean, like when I went to see the show in Vegas, it was Spirit Mother. That's a young band.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I was kind of, and it's the same here in the Bay Area. I mean, I just kind of scope the room, I look around and just kind of get an idea of the demographics, in the room. And, what I see is mostly guys our age, 40s, 50s and so forth. And then you also see maybe with the younger guys, maybe they have some of their friends and, the band members or the bands that are opening and that's, or, playing. And that's really kind of it. It's really just becoming, it's a tough business to, for yourself, for instance, to not really even make money, but even just to make your money back.
Yeah. I think
what I mean?
The goal, well, at first the goal was to make it big and I could just live on, doing shows and all that. That became a harsh reality of not a fucking chance. Ever. I did even two Planet Desert Rock weekend festivals as well. And listen, I parallel what's going on in America with rock and roll. It parallels exactly what's going on with the media and exactly what's going on with, some social things. And so rock and roll is the least amount available, to the mass populations in America than any other Western civilization, pretty much. And we've pivoted, and I shouldn't say we, the people who control the money, meaning three big labels, three big record labels. We're down to 3 labels. Like Atlantic is no longer a record label. It's underneath another record label. Yep. Which means you have one board for each of these labels. Those groups are the people controlling the destiny. Oh, yeah. Then you got 3 broadcast systems. And then you got major management companies. And so I did a little research. I did a whole day or two of research just following the money.
Sure.
And it's just quite apparent, those power structures went so heavy along with media into hip hop and rap.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
it's just stopped any rock and roll growth. In addition to hip hop and rap, country
Yep.
elevated itself way more with the electric guitar and things like that. They have good looking guys. We all have to admit that. And they write songs with stories, which is what rock and roll, part of rock and roll has been about. And so when you cut off all the major arteries that go into society and remove it from commercials, other than the old, hearing a fucking AC/DC song or Master of Puppets or whatever. I mean, there's not a feeding of new stuff. And some people are like, well, maybe there's just not that many good musicians anymore in America or something. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, I mean, maybe the kids just aren't into it anymore. The kids don't know what it is.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
I do my own test, and I take an Uber. I don't drink and drive, and I do like to drink, and I like to drive, but not together. So I take an Uber back and forth to shows every weekend, and I do my own social experiment with them. And I say, hey, I'm going to a rock and roll show. You know what rock and roll is? Most of them, oh yeah, and I'm talking all walks of life. Doesn't matter whether it's a Cuban guy or whether it's an Asian girl, whether it's an old black guy or it's a middle-aged, white dude. I'm bringing it to them, and I'm saying like, hey, listen, I really want to get fired up for the show. Can I put my music on there? I'll play you some rock and roll. And probably about 70% of the time I get it on there.
Okay.
And I'll maybe ask them a couple questions beforehand on their knowledge of rock and roll. And I'm telling you right now, man, no one knows what rock and roll is. But everyone's favorite answer nowadays, this is a politically correct virtue signal answer. And I'm sorry if anyone's offended by virtue signal, but for me, it's a definition thing of sorts.
Yeah.
People will say, oh, I listen to a little everything. That is the stock answer.
I know.
And I'm like, by the way, you're not special. Because everyone says that.
Yeah.
Everyone. That means, honestly, I'm going to be special. And I'm going to tell you that I only listen to rock and roll and some metal. I mean, and I'll listen to Motown and disco because I'm a child of the 70s. Things like that. But I'm not going to sit there and tell you I listen to everything so that you think, oh, I'm cool and I'm open-minded and I'm not racist and all this. That's stupid. We have musical preferences. That's the way life goes. And listen, man, I blow some of these people away with the music I play for them. And they can't believe there's music like this even out. Lately, I've been playing Villagers of Iona Nina City for some folks that, of certain communities. I'll play that. And I'll play this song, Millennium Blues, which starts out with a very reggae kind of vibe to it.
Okay.
And man, it just draws them in. And by the 3-minute mark, when all things, it's like a flame just lights and the thing in rock and roll just fucking rips. They feel it. And I think I tell people rock and roll has to be felt. And so a lot of times I have to tell them that, like, hey, man, can we turn the radio up a little bit? Because you have to feel rock and roll. It's not background noise. This isn't background music on which you're going to start moving around and dancing. You have to feel it. And when I do that, the acoustics and the addition, and when I draw attention to the different instruments, different parts of a song, all at once, it kind of unlocks the brain a little bit because now it's not just a bunch of noise, which to some that's their stereotype. It's just,
rock is noise,
it just sounds like a bunch of screaming and and most of my stuff, I'm a clean vocal guy. I like clean vocals, but screaming guitars, well, rock and roll has a bad stereotype in America. That's plain
right now. It really does. Well, the thing is too is interesting. When I was in Vegas, I was staying at the Paris Hotel, and that night I got home. Night I saw that show, I got home. I got back to the hotel, I should say, And I was like, I'm going to have one more beer before I go up to the room, and I'm just going to kind of chill out in the casino a little bit and just kind of walk around. And I remember going to Vegas, and I remember just, there used to be a lot of live bands, on,
Yeah.
these little lounges, whatever it was. There was live bands that played cover tunes and just played stuff from the 80s or whatever it must be. And I didn't see any of that. In fact, what I saw was, in the front of the big baccarat area was DJs. Were these young kids up there? It's probably about three of them, just in front of turntables.
Huh.
And I don't even know what they were really doing. It wasn't like they were really putting on like a live event. It was like they were just spinning, I guess songs or
Yeah.
and you could just see just such the change, like you were saying. I mean,
Yeah. And
you're not
DJ
getting.
music,
Mm,
no doubt.
yeah.
But DJ music, listen, DJ music didn't start in America.
No, it didn't. It's
It
European.
started
Yeah.
in Europe, and Europe
Mhm.
still literally we can have bands like Freedom Hawk. I told you, I went to a show, and it was a weeknight, but it was like 20 people.
Mhm.
Freedom Hawk played in Europe. They played in front of 200 people.
Yeah.
And it
Mhm.
does not have to be a big city. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And again, it's sometimes people get agitated when I talk about the cultural tie-in that my observations and studies have done, and people get very defensive and get all weird about it. I'm like, listen,
Mhm.
man, it's just you got to kind of look at equations: A plus B equals C, and then look at the surroundings. We
Mhm.
always have to remember what's being fed, and you're
Mhm.
right, dude. A lot of DJs in town. They are the rock stars in
They
many
are
ways,
now.
and rap
Yeah.
stars.
Mhm.
But I have a ton of now friends who've played in bands, big bands from Rough Cut to Slaughter to whatever,
Mhm.
to just local musicians that do still play in cover bands, and you can make a living doing that, and you can be a guitarist in the Michael Jackson show, like my
Sure.
buddy Christian Brady is, who's the
Mhm.
guitarist from Hell Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He,
Yeah. Okay.
he has a
Mhm.
part-time job. He's playing with the Michael Jackson production.
Wow. Well, you're right, and that's the interesting thing too. It's not, if you're gonna be in a rock, like you said, yeah, you're gonna make more money being in a cover band now than you would obviously in a a new band putting out new music. And it's like, well, what would give the incentive then for these musicians to really start a new band and put in all this time and energy and work into something that's, you're gonna, like you said, you're gonna go to a city and there's gonna be 12 to 20 people there. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
a lot of them after a while just gotta throw their hands up and say, why am I doing this? Now, in your case too, now as a promoter, one of the things, one of the things about you that I've just noticed in general, even from talking to, bands and artists that have played, your shows and so forth, is, man, you're an anomaly for a promoter. You are very well respected. Most promoters are in the background, they hide away because, a lot of them could be shady. I mean, just the business itself is a tough business to be really
Yeah.
honorable or whatever, just to, for anyone to make a dime. But most promoters are not usually tend to really looked on upon as honorable people, same with labels and whatever. But you're an anomaly, man. You're someone who's very well respected. People are constantly thanking you. I mean, you see it all the time. Which to me spells two things. For one, obviously means you keep your word, and that you're paying what you tell them you're going to pay them.
Yeah.
And and not long ago, I remember you did put a post out saying, like, this is coming to the end of the year, and you've got to sort of maybe sit down and think about what's the future now of Vegas Rock Revolution because of
Yeah.
this financial pinch, man. So, I mean, for one, what is your philosophy, obviously, as a promoter? Because the fact that you are so well respected by musicians, and two, yeah, I mean, really at this point in time, I mean, what do you see, especially after the pandemic? You know what I mean? Especially after that, whatever momentum that might have been there, I'm sure has been just so crushed because of it. We're now just to get it back, even to maybe some semblance of what it was prior to that, is just going to be such a chore in itself. So, what is now the future that you can see for Vegas Rock Revolution going forward at this point?
Oof. Well, I tell you a quick history about this year. So
Mhm.
obviously last year and even the year before, other than the first couple months, there's been no shows.
Mhm.
When I reconvened with Vamped, which I am very fortunate to be pretty much the only promoter that works with them, and that's on occasion, even at that. I mean, this is
Mhm.
anyone who goes to Counts Vamped will recognize it's one of the top rock venues you can ever go to. I mean,
Mhm.
everything is such high quality. And so when I talked to Corey Coker about it, she goes, I think I got a different model that we're going to have to do. And she is not a person who is versed on any of this music. I mean, she's way more of a classic rock, 80s, you know, that scene. She's even now getting to know the 90s, and then she's like, holy shit, you know, everyone said how bad it was, and now I'm listening to it, I'm like, I like Soundgarden and Alice in Chains. You know what I mean? But at the time she was team metal, because metal went all in on expansion of audience, which meant it went for the women. And so that's where hair metal got so big. And that's where dudes like me who were, you know, seniors in high school heading out to college were like, and going to college, we're like, fuck this. This is enough of this. Too much makeup, too much bullshit. The music's pussyish. You know, the days of when Dio and Priest and Maiden and Metallica and Queensryche and
that was
Doc
gone.
and, you know, I'm lucky enough to live that. So when we re-engaged, me and her, about it, she goes, but you're going to be the one who has to do the show, the whole thing, meaning you're the one that's got to pay the bands and everything else. I'm like, oh shit. So I'm like, all right. And I'll tell you what, it gave me a lesson, because when I did shows with them, there was only a small, tiny marketing budget. I mean, I'm talking like $10 to $20 in ads, which really gives you a very small amount of reach.
Sure.
And just folks that don't know, you know, I've been doing Facebook ads now for 5-6 years, and I've honed my experience and gotten better and better at it. I'm a believer in it to some extent. I am a believer in it. Because what happened was, dude, I put the money in towards the ads. I developed different campaigns involving each of the bands at times, because I curate a show based on if I think the bands are good. Like I've said no a million times. Now there's some shows I've had where it involves locals or you know, an add-on to a touring, you know, group that I sometimes have to grin and bear it. But most of them it's put together. And so my first show of the year was like Nebula, Formula 400, Sonolith, which is a local doom band that definitely has been a great one to work with. They're an instrumental band. And then, God, I hate to say it. Maybe, and I think Laser Beam. And dude, I you know, I spent probably $150 in advertising, and we actually made money that night.
Wow. Okay.
I actually bonused bands.
Wow. Okay.
Because the goal isn't for me to like sit there and make a living off this. It's just to break even and help. You know, I make my money on some other stuff involving marketing and advertising for bands, not the shows itself. And so I actually had winners the 5 out of the first 6 and didn't have less than 90 people at a show.
Wow. That's really good.
So the year started off real good, but I'll tell you what, sadly, man, these last 3 shows destroyed me.
Oh, really?
And so one of them wasn't even really a rock show. It was like a dark wave show.
Okay. Yeah. So you put
that I took a chance on, and that failed. And the Spirit Mother show, I mean, I think we had 60 people buy tickets. It was a weekday show.
Yeah, that was a good for a weekday show. It's pretty good.
Good show.
Yeah.
But financially, it was probably just a little under break even.
Okay.
The venues don't, you know, they don't even help with anything, honestly, other than they provide you the venue, you know?
Sure.
And most of the time. Now, at Vamped, they do. They even give hospitality to the bands, which I, in turn, you know, talked to Soul Belly and got them to help a little bit with that. But, you know, and Vamped supplies the door girl or door person and, you know, a bunch of stuff like that. So Vamp's been the best to work with, but the other ones, they don't always get it. And they just think, oh, that's what promoters do. And, but yeah, and so like these shows I did, the venues, they probably did pretty good those nights because they sold some booze.
Sure.
I took a big loss.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, dude, well, you know, I talked about this on an episode I did recently with my partner, Chris, and I was mentioning, you know, the show, and I was saying how, you know, I mean, dude, you charge $10. I mean, I don't know where you can go anymore to see anything or do anything for $10. You know, and I was like, great. And of course, like I was saying, well, then, yeah, I spent a lot of my money then on the booze. And like you said, you know, there's other things, but, you know, but that is the thing. It's like your philosophy really, you could just tell it's not about you making money, man. It's all about giving back to the scene because I don't know anywhere. And it's not like Vegas is in, you know, it's not like you're in the middle of, you know, Iowa or something, dude. I mean, it's a big city. And
Yeah.
for anything that costs $10 for entertainment, I mean, that's just unheard of.
So,
So, yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, well, Matt, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No,
So,
go. Please do.
the thing with that is this. As a 12-year native of Vegas, a lot of people in the quote unquote scene are entitled to getting a lot of free shit.
Got it.
Myself included. Okay. I mean, I've been to shows for free by someone had extra tickets, and there's this other thing where you could do like last minute seats and you get two, you know, and if you're part of this group, you get them for free if you want.
Okay.
And so, you know, I bumped it up to 10 and 15 this year, 15 at the door, 10 in advance for most of the shows because everything's gone up. It's inflation, the bands. I want to pay the bands something. And so I've done guarantees on almost every single band I've ever done show. Oh. I do now. I have to rethink it a little bit because some of the touring bands and this weekday stuff, it's a loser many times. And so I got to now probably cut back on how much I pay them and still pay them, but then put it where it's back end loaded so that if everything works out great, they get a little extra. And that's not unlike what a lot of venues already do.
Right? Yeah.
Tour bookers already. And I know I'm a guy who's been really, you know, solid on doing that. And same with Transplants Brewing over in Palmdale.
Oh, yeah, Palmdale, yeah.
They're getting killed just as well. I mean,
oh, really? Wow.
Bands are asking for, and there's some bands in there, particularly their bookers, they're straight trying, they're going to kill you financially if you're not careful. And I mean, I've laughed at people at this point in time. I'm like, I love these two bands, but you're asking like triple what your value is in this town. There's no value. No one even knows you. I'm taking the chance regardless. I'm the one that has to do everything for anyone to even know the fuck you are. You know, I mean, I had to tell some tour booker, like, dude, there's not a fucking chance in hell, you know? And, you know, I've missed out on shows. I mean, I've missed out on, you know, tour stops here. And Vegas is known as one of the worst tour stops. A lot of bands skip us.
Oh, really?
And so that's been a tricky part is there's a big home base of people who like to go to shows, but it is very political. It's about their friends and the local band and got to support local, which I always feel, you know, I always have a local band on there almost every time.
Sure, yeah.
But, you know, it's not just a batch of 3 local bands like some would want because they just want their crowd, you know, and that's who they're going to support. So it's really, really tricky. I have broadened who I try to get out to shows a little bit more through some creative ads and things like that. But what's the future? It's going to be probably less shows, which I was only doing like one a month until this little splattering of 3 shows. And as far as the tour stop stuff, I mean, it's going to come down. I almost want to say to them, like, listen, you want to hire me to help you with the show? I can. And I'll give you, you know, you pay me X amount of dollars just to cover all my costs.
Sure, yeah.
Give me an ad budget and I'll give you the whole, you know, door or whatever. Because I just can't, I just don't make that much money. You know, I can't afford to do this.
Sure.
So, you know, I got my next show is John Garcia from Con.
Yeah. Saw that.
And that awesome. Show is going to be, I've already had very strong ticket sales, and most of it's from outside of Vegas because that's going to be the key.
That is the key. You know, it's you're right. It's really the key is getting people to come from out of town because for one, they're going to spend the money. because it's like a vacation. That's the greatest thing about
Yeah.
Vegas. I mean, I got married in Vegas, but for that reason, alone was that my wife was from Hawaii, her family's from there, mine's from the East Coast of New York. Shit, where out here in San Francisco, everything's too expensive. I'm like, well, you know what? If we do it in Vegas, everyone will come because they can make a trip
Yep.
out of it. It's not just for the show; they can make a whole weekend out of it. And so, but it's the same thing, like you said, with shows. I mean, and that and you just brought up something which is interesting about the bands, the local bands, how they really just want to keep it with their scene, and they don't really want any outsiders kind of coming in. Well, I've been saying this for a little bit. I do think there's some value in having to keep things more local these days, just because how rock is in general. You know what I mean? Like you said, you're not going to get. I mean, I think what you did was perfect. You got like the show I went to. You brought in Spirit Mother, a band from California, and then you got two other bands that were local. And if you're going to draw, I would think on a weekday, especially, unless it's really a big band coming in from out of town that people know or familiar with already. The only way that you're probably going to draw somewhat of a crowd locally is, if you get some of those local bands to come. A band like Spirit Mother, who not a lot of people know about, it's okay, they heard about this band, but they're not that familiar with it. Well, are they going to give up their weekday and come out and show up to work hungover and shit the next day? Probably not. And so there it is finding, I guess, that balance really, right, of local as well as outside to kind of like, obviously, a show like John Garcia, like you said, because he doesn't play much, and he's such a legend. Absolutely, you should have no problem drawing bands, but like I said, for other bands that maybe don't have that kind of cachet and aren't that established, and artists, it's got to be such a difficult, for you to balance that.
Well, there's a finite amount of bands that I consider pretty good in Vegas that I could match up with for any of these kind of shows. And so I work with a ton, and I was like pretty much an assistant talent buyer for a while at Vamped. So I was like helping her even set up. So I mean, I know a ton of the local bands, and there's barely any that are an exact fit with Stoner Doom or Psych at all. And some of them don't bring a lot of people because they play a show 2 weeks later or a week and a half before.
That's true.
Because there is a finite amount of bands. So it is tricky. Like I did a show, it was like 5 days after I saw you, with 3 really good bands. High Tone, Son of a Bitch.
Yeah.
Which most people do not know, but when you look at their history, you're like, whoa, and what they just did, this live album, the Hallowed Halls with, on Ripple. And they toured with Phantom Hound, which is a small baby band that I've been into since the beginning, and they'll tell you that.
Yeah, they're from over here, right? Oakland, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, both bands are Bay Area bands.
Yep.
And so, it was a weekday show. And I matched them up with a very good local band that no doubt brought people called Von Bolt, who I gave their first show to ever. And I put them on with a band that was popular in the 2000s called Earshot.
Oh, yeah, I remember them. Sure.
But I still lost a shit ton of money. I mean, they brought half the crowd, but there was only 30 people there that bought. I also had about 12 comps on there.
Okay.
If that gives you any idea of the perspective of what Vegas is about, including the owner texting me, hey, can you let this guy, and he's like an assistant to Billy Gibbons and all this. I'm like, they can't fucking pay. I'm just saying, like, they can't fucking pay $15 towards the scene.
Exactly.
I mean, it's the entitlement factor really fucks things up financially. And that's where maybe the venues need to step up a little bit and say, maybe we give you some bar share, because if we're going to do that, And so, but dude, I lost my ass on that show, and all 3 brands brought it. I have great video, or I had great video of all of them until my phone took a shit. Now it's not on my phone, but at least I got it on Facebook, right?
Sure, yeah.
And it's just really, really difficult. I love actually doing the shows. When I do a show at Vamped, the comfort zone and how I'm able to do it and be myself before the show and watch sound check. I love the loading in, the sound check, and all of us, hugging and, hey, great to meet you. I love that whole process. I'm a big collaborator. And then sometimes I'll slink off to a little booth and VIP, and I'll start working social media, to make sure I'm tying up loose ends, so maybe I can get a few more people in. I love that part, but man, it's stressful leading up to that, and then afterwards, if you're a loser, if it's a loser, it's heartbreaking, honestly, because you put your heart soul into it, and some people are just so dismissive too. I had people tell me, "Oh yeah, I can't do weeknight shows." They go, "The last show was on a Friday," and it's because they literally, as soon as they think about my show, they think, "Oh, it's the Thursday weeknight. I can't do it. Forget it. Already got an excuse." Or, "Oh, it's Stoner Rock," which I've had that conversation with people, and they go, "Oh yeah, you do the Stoner Rock shows." They go, "Well, remember 2 words: Stoner Rock, rock."
The like word rock. Yeah, exactly.
What do you think Stoner Rock is?
Yeah.
I mean, define, what do you visualize as Stoner Rock? And I just run them around in circles until they can't help but feel stupid if they didn't already, because they've come up with a negative stereotype. And stereotypes are just a dangerous thing for people to do, and it goes in all directions. Yeah. And I'm like, listen, man, Stoner Rock, if you want me to define it, or at least my Stoner Rock, my heavy rock, it comes from the family tree of Black Sabbath to Led Zeppelin,
exactly,
Jimi Hendrix to Thin Lizzy, from Blue Oyster Cult to to Bad Company even. I mean, for God's sake, I mean, if Bad Company were out today, it'd be considered a fucking Stoner Rock band practically. I mean, they're writing rock and roll songs with stories.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know what I mean? So, and I continue it and say, and if we go a little bit further down the further up the family tree, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Queens of Stone Age, Caius, Mastodon, and Corrosion Conformity, Monster Mag, and I'll capture people's attention a little bit on that. Oh yeah, they had some good songs. I'm like, yeah, more than just good songs that are on the radio. Trust me.
Oh yeah, a lot better. So, but yeah, the stoner thing, I like to just I stopped even kind of using it because people right away just dismiss it. I just say heavy rock now. I just say, it's a heavy rock band. Even hard rock I don't use, because some people would like, that's not really hard rock. All right, fine.
I almost want to take the term hard rock back.
Yeah, well, it should. Like I said, I used to
hard rock now.
That's what it is. Well, you're right. What is considered hard rock? It's true, man.
The Winery Dogs?
I know, right? Yeah. No, I know. It's that's that whole genre thing. That's a whole nother thing. I mean, you can talk about forever. But but yeah, cool. I mean, so what I want to, obviously, other than Vegas Rock Revolution, now for one, just closing up with that. I mean, I hope things, especially, I know you said you got that John Garcia show coming up.
Oh yeah.
That's going to be awesome. I mean, hopefully, I've tried to stay positive all the time when discussing the future of rock and everything, but it's getting more and more difficult. Like I said, when I saw what I saw in Vegas, when I went to your show, it's very similar to what we're seeing here, and I've seen down in LA and San Diego, whatever it is. I think it's just across the board. But yes, I really try to be positive, but it is tough. Just looking at everything and just starting to think like, rock's becoming more of like the new classical music, where it's like, younger kids aren't picking up a drum, a bass, and a guitar anymore and getting together and writing songs. They're getting a turntable and they're doing it individually. Or people who are playing, the younger kids who are playing music, they're just doing YouTube videos and they're getting hits like that where you're doing TikTok videos. And so it's just destroying, whatever. But it is great seeing you doing what you're doing to keep, at least that spirit alive. There are a lot of younger bands still doing it. It's almost like, my buddy was saying the other day, they're living their parents' dreams now because, there's not a lot of people who are really going out and do, and on a weekday and just saving their money to go see shows and buy a t-shirt and music and all that stuff,
I've had this year at least 3 shows that were on Thursday nights that 90 to 100
That's great, man.
People.
That's fantastic. That's awesome.
And sometimes if you build it, they will come, and it just has to hit the right things. This Garcia show, I curated that bad boy. I'm friends with Reese T from Desert Fest, and he's also the guitarist from the band Steak. And we had done a show a while back, talking about Desert Fest on the Doomed and Stone show, and we were offline and I kind of mentioned about Garcia and we just kind of joked around a little bit. And next thing you know, when I booked Garcia and I had the date, I go, hey, I got this, by the way, in case you do want to pop over to the States.
Mm-hmm.
A day or two later, he's like, you know what, mate? We're going to come on over. And I was like, cool. And Steak, for folks here to listen, if you haven't heard the band Steak, their new album this year, this will be on many people's charts as one of the top albums of the year. It's an exceptionally produced album. It is different than the previous stuff, and I love the previous stuff, but they transitioned in such a way that it's just unique. And so I'm excited to have Steak coming all the way from England as part of this show. They even collaborated with John Garcia on a song.
Yeah, I remember that.
Pisser.
Yeah.
The song Pisser. And they toured together in Europe. And then I brought in Formula 400, which is a good old kicking, rip and groove band with a kind of COC meets Thin Lizzy meets Leonard Skinner kind of vibe to them. That I've been working with and developing them here in Vegas. They played twice this year. They have fans in Vegas now, just like I did with Void Vader. Just kept bringing them into town. Kept showing pictures of Lucas with his shirt off, because sex sells, man. Girls like good looking,
Sure.
The good look. I mean, I'm shameless when it comes to looks and when it comes to marketing. I mean, I marketed Spirit Mother with pictures of the violinist, probably more than Armand, much to his chagrin, because he's a pretty boy himself. Hell, I probably should have done more with him. Anyway, and Formula 400 is gonna shock people because they just have this 2-guitar approach with 2 guys who sing, write, and play guitar. And they used to look the same. They used to have like the same haircut, and they're like the same height. It's kind of funny. Now they're a little different. And Dan and Ian are just super solid. Their debut is just unbelievable. So I champion those folks. And not announced, but I'll tell you guys. And then the local act will be a band called Mojave Sun, fronted by Mariah Baldwin. She has really evolved her voice and how she sings. She used to do like cover bands with, kind of heavier, punkier kind of stuff with higher pitch things. And now she's found where her voice is, and she sings with a more bluesy-ish, soulful kind of thing. And wow, she's got a great guitarist, songwriter that she works with, Blake. And man, the band, I've seen them twice, and I'm like, God, they're the ones that need to open up. And they have a home crowd too. She does a great job of promoting women rock. She's got her own Desert Honeypot, she calls it. It's a series featuring female artists, and she's been a friend of mine. She cuts my hair too, which is just a strange small world we're in. And so I'm really excited to have them as part of it as well.
Nice.
And it's the sales have been good. Listen, I got a VIP experience where people can show up. Okay, they're entitled to coming in for the actual sound check. Now, for some people, are like, what the fuck is sound check? I mean, John Garcia's sound check, last time I was at John Garcia's sound check at Vamped, he played 7 straight songs, including 6 covers.
Wow. Damn.
It was like a rehearsal.
That's freaking awesome.
The bands were loading in.
Wow.
And everyone just stopped, put their things down, and watched. Because there's 20 of us watching John Garcia live.
Yeah.
Singing.
And
like his heart out.
He's just one of the best, man.
And we have a poster that'll be created for the show, just for the show. He's going to sign it. We'll probably have a little time where it's a come up and sign, quick chat. So kind of some neat perks. VIP, just sold another couple today, and I'm only going to be able to sell a certain amount of them. And I hope that the VIP experience, thanks to John, will help us at least break even on the show. It's that kind of aspect. And again, we've had sales from Canada, and I've been advertising this thing countrywide and then sporadically in Canada. And so I had a guy the other day buy 9 tickets that lived here. And I'm like, whoa, that's
nice.
A big move. So
that's huge. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's still, 2 months to go. And I haven't even hit the local market at all. So,
wow. Okay.
So I got people from, they're in the the ad as far as United States, but it's hitting people from Texas and Florida and Colorado, and I got someone coming down from Wyoming.
Fantastic. That's great,
Because
man.
John Garcia does not play
Doesn't play up
live
there.
in America.
He
Barely
very
plays
rarely.
live at all.
Very rarely.
I mean, he played Desert Fest last year. He played a show in Palm Springs.
Palm Springs, yeah.
You know, for a philanthropy kind of situation.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, he never. I mean, last time I seen him play
lucky.
was last time I seen him play even up here was when he was doing Vistacino, and that was that was a great freaking what an experience that was,
Lucky
man.
you.
Just
You got to see that.
got to see that with Mike Dean on bass too and everything. It was a special. That was a special show, very special, man. And it was great. He was sitting there right at the booth selling merch. It's just like, whoa, is that really him there selling his own merch? He was talking to everybody, man. He was just such a nice guy, man. Yeah, that was a great experience. So yeah, anybody who's if you're gonna be in Vegas or if you want to go to Vegas, this is the time to do it. So go ahead and
January 20th. And get this, Matt. I looked and on Southwest Airlines, which of course has no luggage fees, and I picked out I jotted down 20 something cities, just bigger cities, and had a column for under 300 and under 400. And or maybe it was under 400, then just over 400. And most of the cities you can get here for a round trip for that. Wow. Round trip. Wow. And January's not, hotel rates and all that. The Sahara is right down the street from Counts Vamped. And it's a famous, casino that's been kind of redone. And Stratosphere, they're all 12 minutes away. And they're not expensive. This isn't, I'm not trying to tell people to go stay at the fucking Wynn or Venetian or anything. And there is a small chance, Matt, that maybe I do a night too.
Really? Wow.
I'll tell you what, when I started Vegas Rock Revolution after meeting Arthur, one of my goals was to meet and do shows with all the Caius members.
Okay.
And Arthur did an intro to me to John, and John and I are friends ever since. I've done multiple shows with Nick Oliveri and hung out with Nick. What a fucking wild man he is, but I love him. I've done shows with Alfredo Hernandez, where he was in the band Whiskey and Knives, and he was also in a band called Avon, which is named after a Queen Stone Age song.
Yeah.
Alfredo's a great guy. And I've done multiple shows with Brant.
Okay.
I've met Scott Reeder once at a Fireball Ministries show with Red Fang.
Okay.
And of course, who I've not met is Josh. I feel destined to meet Josh and Dave Grohl, if I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
I think those are two guys that are important to, at some point in time, they're the kind of guys that can get things over the edge that this music will be accepted more. And both have been advocates of it. Josh a little bit, he's a little snooty now. And
rock star guy now. So yeah, absolutely.
But hey, I'll tell you what, there's a project I'm working on that we'll just say I got approval indirectly from Josh.
Really? Okay. All right. Very good. Well, that means you're one step closer then to making that happen. Looks like.
So anyways, it's going to be a great weekend.
Awesome.
I mean, the tickets are like $30, but if you want to do VIP, it's like 60, but you got a poster with it and
that's phenomenal.
Memories of a lifetime. So I did a night with John Garcia at Hard Rock Casino.
Okay.
And where I brought in guitarists, all his ex-guitarists but Josh. And they all played a song with him on there. And we did a VIP experience. And people come up to me to this day thanking me for that.
Nice. Well, and that's
it's about memories.
I was going to say, even if you're not making money or even losing money, I'm sure for someone like yourself, having people tell you that, that makes you feel good right there that you're doing something right just by people's memories, like you said. That's what this is all about. It's about the memories and building relationships and friendships. So
totally.
Yeah, man. Well, let's I also definitely want to before we want to wrap this up, just a couple other things I wanted to do here. Obviously, you now also do, and I'm going to bring this up. You work through Ripple. I know you've been helping them do some of these splits with some of these bands. I know you've got this one I'm going to bring up now that just came out recently, Captain Caravan and Kaiser, the Scandinavian split. Here, Turn to Stone chapter. So talk about the Turn to Stone series now with Ripple, how you came about, connecting with them and doing these splits with these bands. You know, especially this is a great one, and people need to check out both of these.
Look at
bands.
that artwork.
Yeah, fantastic. Love it. Yeah,
that was a concept of one of the guys in, I think, Kaiser, and then he just sent it off to the artist in Mango Beard. And geez, this album is I'm really proud of. How I got involved with the splits is I got to know Todd semi early on. I mean, I had to work my ass off just for people to even know who I was, and I was, posting a lot of songs in different groups, and then I formed my own Vegas Rock Revolution, hard and heavy, or heavy and hard. I always forget which it's called even, and on Facebook. And me and Todd met at Psycho Vegas, and then I also went down to the South by Southwest
Texas
show that he did, which involved Steak, which I met and partied with, and a lot of other good bands. And so me and him just kind of developed a relationship, and I asked him how I could ever, get involved, or could I get involved, or would be interested in, working with someone. I just started sending, I think me and him had a great conversation one time. He's like, hey, you ever got an idea or a concept for a split? You let me know. And next thing you know, I gave him 3 within like a month or 2.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So in no particular order. So, the first one was released early this year, and that was Saturna and Electric Monolith, which is 2 Spanish bands.
Spanish, yeah.
Saturna actually came over as part of the Planet Desert Rock weekend that I did, where I brought in 8 European bands of somewhat relatively unknown. All of them made it, no problem.
Really?
And
that's great, man.
Saturna was one of them. And I think Saturna is literally the kind of band that should be on the radio. Like, they just write really good rock and roll songs.
Yeah, very solid. They're very solid.
Yeah, I mean, this split that they did, a little bit lighter than usual for them. So started with that one. Then we had the Australian one where I brought in Dune Eater and Planet of the Apes.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Massive fan of Planet of the Apes since their debut album. I've worked with JC in that crowd before. Really big fan. I kind of look at that as a desert split where you get the Queens of the Stone Age style desert with Planet of the Apes, and Dune Eater kind of gives you that Caius meets Fu Manchu style.
Okay.
And Dune Eater's debut album, guys, it is smoking. Like, it is fucking so good. And Melbourne, Australia has quite a scene. So that album has gotten rave reviews. And then Kaiser and Captain Caravan, which is a Scandinavian matchup here. Captain Caravan from Norway, Kaiser from Finland. Both those bands came over for Planet Desert Rock as well.
Oh, wow.
And I'm loyal. I'm loyal to bands.
That's what it seems like.
Family usually. Once you're in the VRR loop, you're always part of it. And I just checked in, and, a lot of stuff had to happen in between concept and doing it. So I kind of, I obviously curated it. And then in many ways, I kind of, was the go-between and the link between Ripple and the bands. And it was on the email chains together, and basically it was A&R. And so, yeah, I mean, I brought the band Germ, which is formerly Jeremy Irons in the Wrecking Ball, but it brought them the Ripple, set the whole thing up.
Very cool.
I got Tidal Wave just announced, which is a younger Swedish band that
so most of these bands are all now international bands, it seems like, right? These are mostly bands outside of the States that you're bringing in for Ripple. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
right, because Germ's from UK, right?
Music wise, it's just a bigger world out there in Europe versus here when it comes to choices. We'll say there are some American bands that I have floated in that direction, but things just haven't quite worked out. But I've worked since day one with Voivod and Salem's Bend. I mean, they're literally 2 of the first bands that ever did shows with me. And we still do shows to this day. So I have a Ripple connection even with American ones. Is I'm usually a guy that they can depend on to do a show here in town.
Mm-hmm.
But there's another band coming in from Norway that will be announced soon as well that I brought over. And I got another split concept out there that I think is going to be badass, and Todd does too.
Mm-hmm.
And we just got to wait for one of the bands to finish up recording their album before they start working on new material or pick what material they'll shift over for the split. So,
Wow.
you know,
Very cool.
I'm very fortunate that people respect my taste. Some people, because like in Vegas, some people don't at all.
Mm-hmm.
Again, stereotype me. You know, I won't let their band play my show. You know, I pick someone else instead of them, and they're all fucking got a hard on for me now. I mean, you know, it's a dirty business, and
yeah,
I had multiple people go against me early on as well.
Really?
Like,
Wow,
oh, he's not for local bands. Because, you know, I was making a big deal about bands that no one knew coming in town. Dude, it's
the music business, man.
I've chosen with all this stuff. But and it's not easy. And every once in a while I have to come to a reckoning, like, you know, I still got to pay the bills at the same time.
Yeah, man.
The tricky part of the whole thing, but my life experiences at this point, you know, at age 53, it's you just don't know when your last day is going to be. You know, true. I mean, I had COVID bad, but I didn't have to go to the hospital, but I had time to reflect. You know, when you're just sitting there in utter pain. You know?
Yeah, no doubt.
It's one of those things, Matt. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you said promoter, A&R. Now, of course, the other, you know, thing that you do very well is the Doomed and Stone show, as I mentioned earlier today. The podcast, it's been around for a long time. You've been now with the guys, with Billy and Bucky now for a couple of years, right? You started a handful of years ago. You said about 2-3 years ago?
2020.
Okay.
So, right pretty much during when COVID outbreak started.
Okay.
And Billy hit me up, and I was like, cool. And he dug it. I think it gave him some revitalization of sorts. And we've continued this day. Now, Bucky really isn't part of the show other than the Doom Chart special.
Okay.
So, which lately has been the only shows we've been doing practically, but there is another one in the can that will be out probably on Monday. That will be just me and Billy again.
Okay.
But I feel lucky to be matched up with Billy, you know, with a show that already has recognition. He's done so much for the community.
Yeah.
In so many ways. And me and Billy are so different.
Well, you've got, as I was telling you before the show, obviously, you know, which I think is what's great for a show and which makes you guys really good together is because, you know, obviously he guides the show. He's more mellow, laid back, and you bring, you know, that the contrast to that. You bring that energy. And I think just between the two of you and your knowledge of the music, especially because it's new music, you know, the purpose of the show for everyone out there, if they haven't checked out the Dune and Stone show, is promoting these new bands. Like you said, you did a lot of the Dune chart stuff. Obviously, the Doom charts, something I'm involved with now too as well, contributing to that. And you know, it's for people who, even if you're not really into, you know, if you, like you were saying earlier, we were talking about stoner rock, you know, and a lot of people don't even really know about a stoner and doom scene, or just, you know, they when they think of metal, they just refer to, like you said, Octane, you know, they're looking at the modern metal stuff, but there's so many people, especially from anyone who enjoys, like you said, that 90s, you know, the grunge stuff and just the heavy rock stuff that came. I mean, this is really what, you know, doom and stoner is all about. If you like Sabbath, you like the classic stuff, Zeppelin, like you were talking about before, bands, you know, it's just spanned such
like
a
Oyster Cult,
you know,
and Lizzie.
Exactly.
I mean, it's the more organic side of rock and roll. Not always, because some bands use effects and all that stuff, but it's the unchosen. And people think in their mind, and I've had this argument with people that are pretty smart otherwise, and they're like, oh no, the market figures it out always, you know.
Mhm.
You know, of course, if it's good, the labels will go. And I'm like,
That's just
no, because the
bullshit.
labels care
Yeah,
about this, this, and this. I mean,
exactly.
bottom line is the labels still care way too much about how young a band is and their look.
Mhm. Yep.
Now, listen, you know, I'm not one to go put a bunch of ogres on stage. I get it, but I'm not going to discriminate against age or how they look. If the music's good, who gives a
Who gives
fuck?
a shit?
And
Exactly.
that's
Mhm.
people have to re-examine in their mind why that matters so much, you know.
Mhm.
But there is just some key animal instincts when it comes to this stuff, and the ladies definitely, you know, we have some amazing ladies in our
Oh, yeah.
scene that
Absolutely.
are like the unicorns. They
Mhm.
don't give a fuck about, you know, the stereotypical stuff of
Mhm.
swooning over the front man and all that. But they're unicorns, and
Mhm.
God bless them. And I get ladies coming to my shows, uh, decent, better percentage than maybe than others will say.
Okay.
But yeah, the demographic is still very locked in. You know, it's primarily mid 30s, the mid 50s, white and Hispanic. I mean,
Mhm.
that's who supports the scene now as a majority. But you go to my shows, I got a friend of mine, a black girl named Ingrid that goes to all my shows.
Mhm.
I've had a trans something. I don't know which one because I haven't checked the parts. You know what I mean? That goes to shows. I've got Asian
Mhm.
goes, you know. But when you look at the bulk statistics, particularly out here in the West, it's Hispanic and white. Just
It is.
love the support,
Mhm.
and it's part of a culture within rock and roll. But for me, everyone should be open to listening to this kind of music because it goes. I mean, dude, it's just we go from such extremes, and so Stone. And on that show that we do, Doomstone, there's
Mhm.
metal on that show.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's
Mhm.
metal on that show.
Yeah.
There's just regular hard rock on that show. I mean, we've had Crowbot on there and you know things like that. And Billy and I curate different stuff. So when Billy presents, those are the songs that he picked. When
Sure.
I present, those are the songs I picked.
Mhm.
And almost inevitably, the last set that he does will be a little heavier at the
Mhm.
end of the night.
Okay.
And will also be a little more stoned.
Well,
Serious.
makes sense. Makes sense. Doomed
We
and stoned,
love,
you
well, I
know?
mean, we've already picked the stuff, but
Sure.
if anyone listens to the show and actually listens to our stuff is random shit comes out of probably more my mouth than anything. Uh yeah, I mean, I'm usually, you know, smoking a little bit along the way.
Yeah, sure.
And some people just get a good laugh and a laugh out of it along the way. And we bring up, you know, tour announcements and happenings as well. And I really enjoyed it. It's been a godsend through these dark times.
Mhm. Yeah. And so how now, just from what I've noticed, it's like, what is it, about every couple of weeks you guys put out a new episode?
It
Is
should
there
be
a
every week, but
okay,
you know, health issues and timing have been tough
sure.
of late.
Mhm.
We're getting a little more on target now. Um, there was a couple months where we did one show. You
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
Billy is certainly had some health issues post COVID.
Mhm.
Um, I probably, you know, have certainly suffered some at times, but you know, and life gets busy. But man, when it's time to do the show, both of us feel better.
Mhm.
That's the bottom line.
And smoking during it
And
makes you feel even more better, so,
yeah, I
you
mean,
know?
I'm
Yeah.
talking like a vape pen.
Yeah, yeah.
He's done tinctures or whatever the fuck,
Okay.
whatever. I don't even know what that is. I don't think. You know, I think he explained to me, and I'm just like, I don't even know what a tincture is. You know, something he puts in something.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
you know, it's just a show that we're very blessed to have great feedback. We're on all major platforms. Um, we get last I checked with him, we get weekly at least 1,000 plus people on just one platform playing the
Mhm.
show. And it doesn't mean just that show. People are listening to back episodes and working their
Mm.
way up. at the same time, it's, these are 3-hour shows,
Sure.
2-hour shows. But if you use Spotify, it's ridiculously simple. Like
Mhm.
it's literally, you know what I mean? You could just stop, and when you go back into Spotify later on, it's sitting there,
Sitting there, yeah. Well,
And if
yeah,
you really
yeah.
don't want to hear us talk, then forward.
Yeah. Well, no, and like I said, it's perfect. I love it because yeah, I got about a half hour to work back and forth, and so for me,
Right.
well, it fills up most of that week just going back and forth at those 3 hours. It's
Cool.
perfect. It's a great, yeah. So everybody, Doomed and Stone show, check it out. And like I said, the main thing, what's great about it to me, is it's new music and bands, but it's also bands that I mean, like some of these bands you guys put on there from from outside of the country too. I mean, for some of these bands are phenomenal, and they've been around for years. I've never heard of them, and then it's like, well,
Yeah.
because I mean, how would I hear them? This is if you want to be spoon fed music, new music, well, here it is. Doomed and Stone Show is one of the best for that. Check it out. Like I said, on it's everywhere. It's on all the podcast platforms, all the streaming platforms and everything. There's no excuse for once again, new music, bands you haven't heard of before. Doomed and Stone is fantastic. So John, like I said, we're coming out hour 15 here. Let's go ahead. I just want you to sort of like recap things now in terms of what's going on. Like I said, obviously we've gotten in detail with the John Garcia show coming up for Vegas Rock Revolution. Just talked about Doomed and Stone. You're doing your stuff with Ripple. Anything else you got? I mean, you're like I said, you're a jack of all trades here with the business, man. Anything else you got? When are you gonna be in a band? When are you gonna start, singing for a band or something, fronting? Is that something you ever thought about doing or what? No,
No.
it's not your thing. No performance from you.
Well,
No.
listen, I used to be able to sing as a little kid. I tell this story when I was in kindergarten. Kindergarten.
Uh-oh.
That we had a music teacher. Maybe it's first grade. I always get those 2 years, mixed up. They decided that they're going to have our first grade class sing in the after school thing for Christmas.
Mhm.
And they had every one of us sing. Like, I don't remember, maybe it was Row Row or Your Boat or something. And I mean, and I was kind of a shyer, awkward boy at that time. And I'm still awkward, at least. And so when I sang, she said, "Oh, you're in." And what the song is "Oh Tannenbaum." So we're
Oh,
going to
wow.
sing "Oh Christmas Tree" in German. Now, first
Mhm.
off, why the fuck are we singing this in German? I don't get it. Like, I
Yeah.
look back, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, if we sang "Oh Christmas Tree," that would have
Mhm.
been amazing. You're
Mhm.
fucking kindergartners. Enjoy
Exactly.
kids singing it. But
Yeah.
no, fucking singing German. So,
Instead of German principle or something then. I mean,
yeah, right.
you
Who knows what the
Yeah.
hell was going on? Something's going on. But so I unfortunately a lot of drinking and smoking weed over the years. I've smoked pot since I was 18,
Mhm.
casually most of the time. I mean, but I'm not a pothead, meaning I don't do it all day or any of that stuff. But I
Mm.
have really bad acid reflux disease, so
Mm.
my larynx, esophagus is charred up. But I tell you what, I sang karaoke the other night for the first time in decade plus. I was good and buzzed. I was with a girl.
Mhm.
I dared her to sing. She says, "The way if I sing with you," she had never done it before, so it's kind of like she won't do it. And she did it.
Unless you do it first, huh?
And she did it.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And she was fucking good. So I started looking around like, oh God, I need a pair of sunglasses because it works better that way. Yeah, I sang "Light My Fire." I
Okay.
played it like I was a drunk Jim Morrison. So,
Okay.
and I was very monotone, like, oh my baby. But then when it came to fire and all that, I
No.
reached down deep and people were like turning their heads like, what the fuck? Like, fire! People were like, what? I was like,
Nice.
damn, this kind of sounds good with a microphone here.
Mhm.
But no, I've stood in front of people when I ran those market departments and teams, and I've done a ton of public speaking. But for whatever reason, I've decided here in Vegas not to be an MC of the show. My buddy Brian Moy is.
Okay.
He literally, and he's a guy who also helps the stoner rock scene and psych scene more even. And he gets up and MCs the show, which I think is neat, but it maybe hurts the flow a little bit for me.
Gotcha.
And I really care about the production of a show. One thing I love that you sent me was you sent me a message after you met me and you're on your way home and you go, I was out waiting for my ride. And then once I hear Greenleaf in the background, and I'm like, this is so cool. And that's, I hammer home to the venues that I need to control the music that night. I want it to be themed. I want it to make sense. I don't want hip hop or rap or the Guess Who to pop on there. I want music of the peer group. I want music that makes sense. You're not going to go to a rap club and hear Wofat.
Yeah, exactly.
So why are we
playing that
and disrespecting the rock community so much? I get so mad when venues don't give any shit about it. Yeah. And it's just like, why are we disrespecting? Oh, it's a big deal. No one cares. I'm like,
yeah, they do.
Why are we not caring?
Well, I think it fits the mood. Like, you know, that night at the Spirit Mother show, you had Limousine Beach playing. I mean, these are bands that these are bands I love that not a lot of people know about. So when I'm sitting there having drinks and I'm in a live setting and in the background I'm hearing Greenleaf and I'm hearing, you know, Limousine Beach. Yeah, to me, that is just an extra added, I don't know what you would call it, but it's like, to me, that makes the experience that much more better.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? It really does. And that's like I
love when people come up to me and they're like, hey, man, you're doing the music, right? Who was that? I love it.
Loved it, right?
It's a sign that someone's paying attention, and it's a massive uphill battle. I mean, I've always said the goal is to be one of the players to help get this scene expanded. And so what you asked me earlier, what do I do? What else? I mean, I work with individual bands on marketing campaigns.
Right. Okay.
And a lot of it I use Facebook ads, and I use one of their music videos, and I only work with bands that I think have an upside. Meaning that if it's played in front of enough people, they go, hey, that's cool. And I've worked with probably 30 bands that way.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, man, when this just goes out to Facebook to people, you know, of different targets, the comments you see are amazing. People are like, I had no idea there's music like this being made anymore. Formula 400 every day practically gets a comment on a video that I have running. I mean, every day. And Sons of Arrakis or Ericus, whatever, the you know, from the Duke.
Canadian, right?
That's actually who I'll be talking to after this. Fred from up there in Montreal. Man, they're an amazing man. Yeah, absolutely everyone is gravitating to them. I started with them with virtually nothing. I actually linked them up with Ripple, but the timing was bad, and Sons pulled out and said, "We'll get back to it." So that's another band, and me and Fred worked together, and no one knows this music, and when they hear this stuff and they take a chance and they click on the ad to hear it, it equals more fans because people are like, "Holy shit." I mean, Witch Skull, people.
Oh man, Witch Skull. We talk about that
over themselves on Witch Skull. People can't believe, and I'm like, that's stoner metal. I mean, that's metal, but it has the stoner-esque stuff to it. But in the end, it's just good fucking heavy music, man.
It's great. We you know, when I first started Aftershocks, that was one of the first bands we interviewed was Witch Skull.
No way.
And we had guys. It was some of the listeners I had from the classic metal show heard that, and they were just like, and they bought that record, you know, just from, you know, hearing the samples that we put on there. Because that band is freaking amazing. Yeah. No, like you said, Formula 400. I mean, that San Diego scene is fantastic. What's going on down there now with them and Mesua, and I mean, just great bands down there.
I started work. Kip, here's a funny story. Kip Page from Formula 400, who's been a bassist for a long time in the scene. He was in the band Ride the Sun.
Ride the Sun, that was a great band.
And Kip one time introduced me to Mesua. And he goes, hey, here's a buddy's band. Check it out. See what you think. And I looked them up on Facebook and they had 30 followers. And I'm like, Jesus, this is a new band. So I listened to the album. And I'm like, that's pretty fucking good. And I gravitated back to it, listened to it again. Then I listened to it on the road. I used to love driving from here to SoCal, to San Diego or LA or whatever. And the music and the desert scapes is just amazing.
Perfect.
And I listened to Mesua, and it was just me in the desert and Mesua. You know what I mean?
Nice.
And I'm like, God, this music is amazing. In the lyrics, I go, this feels autobiographical. And when I met Nacho Maldonado, who's pretty much is Mesua, he goes, oh yeah, for certain. I'm like, wow, this is good. And I've been a believer in them since, and helped him along the way. I mean, he's, like many bands nowadays that put great music, it's not their primary job.
Sure, of course not. Yeah,
they can't. So he's a busy mofo, man. But they just put out a great new album. And San Diego, listen. I mean, listen, I Radio Moscow. I've had multiple shows.
Sacramonte. Yep.
Monarch. Which
obviously Earthless.
Like the Monarch, that's the psychedelic one. There's a few Monarchs. Psychedelic with like almost like Allman Brother kind of vibe at times.
Yeah.
I mean, San Diego is the heavy psych capital of our country.
Absolutely. I agree.
I think just a little bit over Austin, even though I love Black Angels and a few of those. Just San Diego's thick with it.
Yeah,
with
like
Earth, it's a new band.
Okay, yeah, like I've been saying, to me, San Diego, Texas, and Philadelphia has got some great bands out of there too, with Heavy Tempo and Gray Bathers and
Age of Truth,
High Reaper. I mean, just
Age of Truth.
Okay, yeah,
really, really good. Yeah. And then what's the shit?
Ecstatic Visions too. That's a freaking
Ecstatic Vision, great psychedelic. And then the one with the girl lead singer that's super popular now.
Heavy Tempo. Heavy Tempo.
Another Philadelphia, but Ruby the Hatchet.
Oh, Ruby the Hatchet. Yeah, I think they're Jersey, right? But same area.
Another Philly.
Yeah.
Well, High Reaper's not Philly either.
Yeah, they're technically like
Delaware or some shit. But,
exactly.
It's across the river.
They're right across the river. Exactly. Yeah.
You're a Northeasterner. You know how close
exactly.
Right there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And hey, I want to tell you, thank you for everything you're doing, man. It was so cool to meet you. Your energy was great. Your passion as well. I think you got to be thanked. I really appreciate getting to know you and seeing everything you did. I did some research on you, before doing the show, and I'm like, this is a cool cat for sure. That's just out there hustling and doing his thing and helping the scene along the way. So much appreciation to you, sir.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, John. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's just, I just real quick. I think it's, and I'm not, but I think, and that's the first thing I noticed about you is I just saw the passion and why you're doing it. You can tell, like I said, you don't see promoters very rarely talked about at all. And so many people I've talked to, like I said, I got so much respect for you, for what you do. And I think it's just all of us doing our part. I think if everyone just does a little, whatever it is they do, whether it's they put a show together, where they have a little label, or they book shows locally, it all adds up. You know what I mean? Just for rock, because we've got, like, you put out a great thing on that post about the future of Vegas Rock Revolution. It's just like we've got to, it's not going to be, it's not the old days, and it's not just going to exist on its own, man.
Yeah,
it is dying little by little. I don't say dying. I don't want to sound all doom and gloom, but it's not what it once was, and so it's going to take bands and fans and just whatever everyone's just to do a little part and to keep this thing going, because like you said, it's we don't do it to make money. It's to do it for the love of the music and to make friendships and just create this community the way rock it once was and how it started in the beginning. That's how it was. If you go back even to to England, when Cream and those bands were coming out, when they had that British explosion in London, I mean, it started that way. It was just local bars and stuff and people playing. The next thing they took off. So it's got to kind of go back to that. And I think it's up to us as just fans and everybody and even if you're not going to do something, put together a label, something, just go to the shows and support the bands. That's it. You know what I mean?
Like, I tell people that are unfamiliar with rock, or just not really versed in what the history of rock is. And I tell people, listen, there's nothing more American than rock and roll.
Yeah.
It was born here,
Mhm.
and we've aborted it.
That's
Due to all
totally.
this
Mhm.
weird social things going on, and it was born here from our African Americans
Yep,
in the
absolutely.
blues,
In the blues,
and
yep.
it
Mhm.
has evolved. And America and the UK really pushed this thing and
Absolutely.
electrified it to
Yep.
no end. I try to tell people, like, listen, yeah, every once in a while you hear bad things when you bring up blues and stealing and all that. I'm like, listen, man, it's like, do we get pissed off at BMW even though they took the basic concept of what Ford was doing?
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
mean, just remember, things evolve over time, and it never takes away from the basis of what blues is about. But that's what the foundation, almost everything I do, it has a blues base to it, unless it's some of the psychedelic out there stuff, which I think is actually psychedelic rock is very much increasing
Oh, yeah.
popularity. And I think a lot of that has to do with legalization of
Legalized
marijuana in
weed, I was
parts
gonna
of the
say.
state.
Yeah, exactly.
And you look at
Yeah.
all them witches and King
Oh,
Buffalo
yeah.
just finished the
Oh,
tour
man.
where they played in
Mm.
front of 425 people in Vancouver, and they were playing in front of hundreds every night.
Every night,
And
yeah.
I saw King Buffalo 4 years ago here in
Mhm.
town, and the venue didn't do shit again. The
Mhm.
venue's closed now. I mean, the person who was running the venue was like a complete, like, off the rails cokehead at this point in time. She had just lost it. And
Mhm.
I saw King Bubba with about 55 people,
Okay.
and now they're playing in front of
Hundreds.
hundreds of people.
Yeah.
And
Hundreds.
they made such a big difference during COVID era with their lyrical theming and the kind of the darkness of that era. Uh, it's just made a big impact. And we watch these bands like that, Elder, they just keep going up. So there's a psychedelic branch is really building out
Mhm.
there. And I think that's great. Crowbot has gotten bigger and bigger, and they come
Oh,
from our scene. And
yes.
I bring up Rival Sons, and I know people are like, no, Stone and Rock. I go, they're from my family. I mean, if you
Mhm.
want to, I mean, they're sure to fuck not from the new metal brand,
No, no, not at
right?
all.
Like, if you look at
Yeah.
Octane, everything comes from almost a new metal family tree.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's
Mhm.
comes with that is the production and ridiculousness that I'll never be able to play live without a
Mhm.
lot of backing tracks and theatrics. And Rival Sons, Crowbot. At one time, Scorpion Child was
Oh,
really
they were
looking like an
amazing.
up-and-comer.
Yeah.
They are coming back, by the
Oh,
way.
they are? Oh, rich. Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Aaron's an amazing singer. So
Oh, phenomenal, man.
he's
Yeah.
got, and so, they're, hell, I even have to say Greta Van Fleet and Dirty Honey. As much as people want to disparage them, they're from our roots.
Mhm.
And
I love
people
Dirty
get
Honey.
angry that
Yeah.
Greta, got the big break, but they're young and they
They're
obviously
brothers.
hustled and did things. I mean,
Yeah.
Rival Sons is the one that deserved probably the attention, but
Yeah.
they're not a bunch of 20-something-year-old kids.
Well, yeah, they're brothers, and they have the story. That's the thing, in music business, they always love bands that they
Yeah,
could sell. They could sell Greta Van Fleet because these guys are
yeah.
brothers, and they were, like you said, teens, 20-year-old kids. Where, like you said, Rival Sons don't necessarily have that story to market. You know what I mean? So that's
Mhm.
the reason why Greta Van Fleet, I think, is the bigger name. But I want you. I mean, we talk about like Dirty Honey. I love Dirty Honey. I think they're a great band. I've interviewed Mark before. He's a great dude. Just all that stuff. I'm with you. I mean, that to me, it's like you said, it all comes from the roots of the blues, and that's what I love about anything that's just rock and coming from blues and that
Right.
angle. To me, I'm all about promoting and pushing because, like I said, I feel like we're at that point. We've got to go back to basics here, just as rock fans and just musicians and artists. It's just let's bring the fun back to it. That's the thing you've been doing too. You're bringing the fun back to rock, which I love to see.
I think that it has to be part of it. I think that the emotion and the groove. I think if you look back at Black Sabbath, which I'll say to this minute is the absolute most important band that's ever been created, and that's because what they did was not all the same. Period. End of sentence. and the swing that they had with War on drums and Geezer on bass, it literally, if you're not moving around a little bit to their songs other than fucking Iron Man and Paranoid, because you're probably just like ready to go to the bathroom. The other ones, I mean, Fairies Wear Boots and all these other songs, it has a groove.
Absolutely.
And people like to least move. I can't dance worth a shit. I'm one of the absolute most embarrassing dancers ever.
I'm right with you.
But I'll rock. I'll rock. And when I'm in that car, an Uber car with whoever it is next to me, you know, that's driving, I'll play Pressure and Time by Rebel Sons all the time. And they'll see me moving out there. You know, I'm like, I go, this white boy can't dance, but I can rock and roll. I can feel this.
Yeah. That is dancing. Like, oh, that's your dancing, right?
I mean,
exactly.
I don't care what. I only had one guy intimidate me the whole time I've ever tried to take over the stereo. And he just looked mean. So
yeah,
I decided he looked mean and big.
Not worth it.
He had hip hop playing very loud, and I'm like,
maybe pass on that one. Yeah,
I just started talking to him instead.
Yeah.
He really wasn't even enjoying that. But most of the time, I mean, one time I got picked up in a Hello Kitty car. It fucking was themed like Hello Kitty. Wow. It had even lights and had videos and all that. And I ended up taking that shit over from her. She did not like the music.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I know.
But what I didn't like is when I got dropped off at the venue, people were going, who's getting out of the clown car? And it was me.
That's great.
They're like, oh, nice car. I go, yeah, right? Like, it's crazy. She's like, thank God he's leaving. You know, and I even played something that wasn't even heavy for her. I mean, you know, it's an adventure. We try to make life, you know, we have to make life interesting and fun for ourselves and fight being apathetic and lazy and stuck on the couch. I fight it myself on many things. And that's where getting out and breaking up the midweek monotony by hitting a show. I mean, I set up shows where the first band plays at 8:30. So that the last band is done, we hope by, 11:30, which I know is still late, but come on, man. I used to go
still
to
rock show
on every next day. What the fuck?
Well, and yeah, no, that's a big challenge, and you're right, dude. It's about, and I've talked to people about this. It's especially with the internet now. I mean, it's just easy for people to say, nah, you know what? I'm just going to stay in. And for one, they could save money, and then they feel like, but what happens is, obviously you're not getting the real experience, obviously, with musically, if you're not going out seeing these bands live. I mean, just that's what I think what's missing. It's easy, especially if, obviously since the pandemic, people just got used to sitting home. And I think it's just like, well, I'll just they're going to live stream something. I'll just watch it on the, online, or, people have just gotten really complacent and just, I guess, I don't know if we say lazy, but whatever it is, it's just, they got so used to doing it where now it's like an arduous thing for them just to get up and go out to a venue and go see a show, where that used to be something you had to fight not to do. Now it's something people are having to fight to do. Big difference, obviously. So it's a challenge. That's another challenge, like, someone like yourself faces when you're trying to get people to come out to shows.
Yeah. And folks, you don't need friends to go with you.
No.
That's exactly what I did. And I met people by doing that. And before I even knew anyone, some of these shows, I just went by myself. I remember when I went to see the Cult, they were doing an electric. This was like not, 8 years ago or something like that. They were doing an electric tour, which is one of my favorite albums ever. The Electric by Cole. Electric by Cole. And I went by myself and I made the plan. I'm like, the opening band was playing all this other shit. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to grab 2 big beers. After everyone leaves, I'm getting on the rail right here. And Billy Duffy played in front of me the whole time.
Nice.
And I just fucking going off. I don't care. Don't want to think I'm fucking a lunatic. I'm having a good time. I'm not going to know that person. Or maybe I will, but I don't give a fuck what people think of me.
Yeah.
And when I'm at music, it's me and the musicians. It's me and the music. It's not fucking, oh God, I wonder if people are looking at me. At this point in time, I just don't give a fuck anymore. You know what? Why do I care? What? Exactly. When someone's gonna be like, oh man, that guy's must be crazy, getting all wild. And someone else probably say to him, he's into the music.
Exactly.
What's wrong with that?
Yep.
So people just need to break out of the shell and know that live music can make a difference in your life. And if you have to drink a little less during the weeknights or not drink at all, you get over it.
Exactly.
You know, if you smoke some weed, a little puff before the show or in between in Vegas, hell, you can walk outside with a vape pen or I mean,
it's all over the place. Oh yeah,
you can literally smoke.
Yeah.
I mean, it's legal here, but you know, you're not allowed to smoke it in public. But
sure,
our cops and security are more concerned about people getting stabbed.
Exactly.
Than people getting shot
smoking
or
away, you know, getting
not
high.
fucking weed.
Exactly.
Same with the airlines. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. To your fans, just get out and support and check things out. It'll probably make your life even a little more interesting along the way, and just be careful to balance things out. You know,
absolutely.
The music's there. The music is there more than ever.
More than ever. I agree, man. It's there. There's no excuse. It might not be, you're not going to put it on the radio and hear it anymore like you used to. There's no MTV like there once was, but instead you've got the internet where you can find this shit all over the place. But it's not going to be spoon fed to you like it used to be. But it's there. And if you want spoon fed to you, you got the Doomed and Stone show. You've got things like that where you can find it. So John, you know, just go ahead and let people know then how to, you know, to keep up with you, your events with Vegas Rock Revolution, Dude Stone. Just go throw out all the plugs, you know, before we wrap this up. I know there's a lot of them, but go ahead.
First off, listen to the Doomed and Stone show. Some be prepared for some talk about each band and song along the way, and descriptors before the song happens. And if you don't want to listen to us, listen to the music. That's the way I put it that way. There's a way to do that just as well. We take great pride in what we curate. I have bands hit me up all the time to play songs. It's nice, but if I don't think it's as good as the other stuff that I'm thinking and liking, and I'm not going to do it. I'm not bought and paid for it, you know?
Yeah.
So, and Billy, you know, he provides some excellent doom. He plays some of the same stuff I do at times as well. He's definitely more on the doomed side. I tell him jokingly, this show is made for us. You're the one that's always doomed, and I'm the one that's always stoned. But at the end, he's actually doomed and stoned. And so there's just something there for everyone with the Doomed and Stone show. So hope you check it out sometime. And as far as VRR, listen, I have a website that I've never done anything with. And so at some point, that's one of the things I got to get off the couch with and do. And I have to figure out some monetization things so that I can pay my bills along the way, you know, for the efforts and work. So at some point in time, I'll put some things together that will provide that opportunity. Good chance I am putting together probably a Bandcamp compilation of bands that have worked with me in the past.
Very cool.
I did one already with Ripple that did very well. I set up one that had all the bands that have ever done a show with me.
Oh, wow. Ripple. That's really cool.
It was like 15 bands at the time.
I've
added some since, obviously. Maybe it's 18. So that's out there. But I am going to create a new one with bands that have worked with me in some form or fashion, either done a show or brought me on to help them with some of their marketing and all that. I have a playlist that'll be coming out here. Hell, it might even be coming out here later today, or if not, maybe early next week. That highlights mainly 2022 new music with some 2021 in there as well. It's very finely curated. I'm still going to be adding some things. I always get bands hitting me up like, hey, man, could I be on it? I did a playlist that got, I think it was almost 700 likes and follows a number of years ago, which was like just super cool. So, you know, playlists are a big importance. Following that, that can help the bands who then they will get more followers. And the more followers they get, the better chance they got of getting booked as well. And that's a big thing that people don't realize what Spotify is. Bookers, venues, that is absolutely something they look at, is how many Spotify listeners you got. they could even break it down by market and things like that as well. So,
Oh, okay.
There'll be some things going on with the webpage, hopefully at some point in time. Maybe I'll send a little email over to the guy to set it up and say, hey, can you add this and add this real quick along the way? And if you're, ever interested in coming to Vegas and you like this kind of music, keep an eye out, because most of the shows I'll try to keep the Fridays, and that's what the John Garcia show is, where he'll probably be playing an hour and a half plus set with, predominant amount of Bicayas with some of the other stuff from his last album, which was my album of the year, solo album. So
that's great, yeah.
And Steak may not even play another show in America, just comes over and plays that, maybe one other show. And it's a good time to be had, and there'll probably be there'll be a second day. And I don't even want to tease the crazy concepts in my head right now of what that second day could involve. And I'll make that ticket, 30 or less as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, there it is, Mr. John.
Follow me on Facebook. Follow me on Facebook, Vegas Rock Revolution. Has a main page, and then I have a group page as well for Vegas Rock Revolution. That's where music is consistently put in there. I have members who curate music there as well. And a lot of those music and everything that's put on the page, I have to give the okay first. So that way we don't have spam and all this other crap.
Sure.
Going on right now. There's a fun spam thing right now where they're like, Pierce Brosnan is dead. We miss Pierce Brosnan. Like, rest in peace, Brosnan, they put. And it's like, Facebook's gotten a little.
It's got a little nutty like that. Yeah.
A little nutty with that stuff.
I think I remember seeing on the Vegas Rock page, there was like, I think it was probably like a month or so ago, there was someone's putting some sort of satanic stuff up on there or something, promoting some satanic shows, or I don't know, something like that.
That guy.
And I just was getting a laugh out of that because, I just thought it was pretty funny. But yeah, you get all the
spam, but Anton LaVey's son.
Yeah, it goes the Anton LaVey thing. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. That's Rain doing his thing. I let him post there once in a while, but hell, I try to post there every day. I'm not in for that.
Yeah, sure.
It's a wild world out there, man. It is, man.
It is, man. Especially in this music world, man. It is crazy. It always has been, always will be. But once again, we're grateful for guys like yourself who are doing what they can for the seed, man. And continue to do so. So kudos to you, John. Thanks so much for coming on and talking about the show and Vegas Rock Revolution, man. And we'll definitely have to have you on again for sure to talk some more music.
Anytime you want. I love talking with a cool guy like you and talking music and all this stuff. And you let me know sometime. I'll bring you a few songs and we'll look over them or something.
That'd be fun. Yeah, absolutely.
Something fun like that. And if I ever do get a solo show going, I'll let you know, and you'll be a guest.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Thanks, bud. Really appreciate it. All right. So everyone out there, be sure, like I said, go ahead, check out the Dude and Stone Show, VegasRockRevolution.com. If you're in Vegas, check out John's shows. And John, man, once again, appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much, sir.